Good genetics don't mean anything if you'll eventually get injured. And unfortunately, many blessed lifters get snapped up early on. Short training careers almost every single time. So even if they were able to achieve impressive numbers right off the bat or within a 5-year time frame, if it's unsustainable in the long run, guess what? They're back to average status or slightly above. So what really matters is staying in the game long term. That's why rushing progression or worrying about the when factor is a complete waste of time, because success is inevitable when playing all the right cards, especially if we talk about epigenetics. Maybe you'll peak later in life. Ever heard about the ugly duckling? Well, it's not only about looks, performance, same thing, man. And with muscle growth, it's so slow. Maybe you tapped out your novice stage earlier on. You were a hard gainer, quote unquote, but you always persisted. Going from that 185 bench to 275 over a 10-year time frame, which is very slow, I'm not gonna lie. I would call that below average, but you still got there. And what I've noticed over the years, especially natty powerlifters, is that they typically have one lift that they don't excel in. The bench press and deadlift being most leverage dependent, either having really short or long arms, which when you look at push-pull meets, explains a lot. The squat is your nice balanced lift on average. And so you can oftentimes have a guy with a 600-pound squat, 700-pound deadlift, and 315 bench. You can say from a total standpoint, that's not great because the bench is sabotaging competitiveness. But guess what? It's still 3 plates aside. And if you do happen to have like a 6'6" wingspan, you're strong. And I bet your arms are gonna be way bigger than a manlet like me. So who cares if you're not hitting 350 or 405? You're still objectively advanced. At the same time, you may not realize this, but if a genetic freak who was benching the 400s tore a pec, destroyed his rotator cuffs, or simply has elbow issues, he might be back at 3 plates or slightly above. So from a competitive standpoint, you're still pretty similar. Especially if you can sustain this for decades. In fact, you may be more competitive if it was so slow. What I mean is, look at the 40-plus-year-old powerlifting records. The numbers are significantly lower. Why? Everybody's beat up. They couldn't last long. To my knowledge, one of the few guys remaining is Matt Wenning. Most of the other guys are completely gone. You have never heard their name ever again. And sometimes I see the older videos being recommended on YouTube. I'm like, yeah, I remember those guys. Where are they today? Probably as strong as you and I. Guys who were deadlifting in the 700s back down to low 5s. Not that there's anything bad with that. You are still a great puller, my man. But guess what? Some average dude can pull that off as well. Guys with T-Rex arms, horrific leverages can pull over 5 plates. So if a genetic freak is now equivalent to the average guy, what's the difference? Outlasting the competition. That is what I'm trying to stress today. Fuck what all these other guys are doing. Look at the history and final destination. It's not about social media clout right now. You're not injured, and then you keep going. 30, 35, 40, you peak. And now you got all the strength that maybe some freak had 15 years before you. But now you're older and more competitive at that age. So even if it takes you 5 times the progress, if you've been training from 25 to 40, yet have identical strength to a genetic freak who's been training from 22 to 25, guess what? You're still equivalent and stronger than 99% of the population. And you can now compete in the Masters division, which in Wilks-Score's terms might actually be better. Maybe you're so much smarter that now the chance of getting injured are even less, even if your hormonal profile isn't optimized. When you're young, you make a lot of mistakes. Mistakes that can end your career. So that 25-year-old might peak at 27. Something bad happens to him. And now he's not even on your level anymore. Whereas you're approaching your 40s still kicking ass. That's what I'm talking about. Time is the secret weapon against genetics. It's not only the variable for yourself, but even if we're talking about comparing to other individuals. So for all you guys who are like, well, I can't help myself but to look at other guys, in the end, you win. Which is even better if you're natty because all your gains were from you. And it's so easy to maintain the muscle. You think if it took you over 10 years to bench 3 plates, that the strength gains are going to disappear quickly, man, I wouldn't be surprised if you're a great bencher for life, even if you decide to do something else. And hey, if you ever get back into that world, the strength will come back regardless. So muscle memory is long lasting as well. This is multifactorial. And just anecdotally, I want to point out that so many lifters with great genetics are lazy after a certain point. They lose that hunger. They're not the underdog. That's why. They've lost the fire because everything comes so easy for them. Or they'll settle for something that's objectively elite because they don't need more than that. Whereas the guy who has to really grind it out for every minuscule PR, I can promise you, he remembers the months, the years, maybe not the exact day, but he'll tell you stories about what it took to overcome such plateaus. The struggle is so intense, it builds that mental toughness on a different scale. And the smart program that comes with it, you have no choice. You are literally forced to optimize things. And what does optimal programming do? Keep you injury free. So you lessen the mistakes. In a way, this is actually to your benefit long term. That's what I'm talking about here. Sustainability. You got it? And just look at me, guys. In 2018, I started getting lazy with leg training. And there were guys who came into space that greatly surpassed my performance. I can promise you that a lot of them have worse leg genetics than me. Time beat me. And it'll be the same for you too. Look out for that quiet dude who's always consistent. Not making a lot of noise, but he's just going after it. Eventually, you'll see him rise. Take the world by surprise. Which we're starting to see as the years pass by. So stop worrying about your leverages, your proportions, how fast you put on muscle or overcome plateaus. If we know that you can still make gains, just 1/4 of the speed, then it's a done deal. Completely a wrap. Because all you need now is time. It might be slow motion. It probably will be. But who cares if you peak later in life? It's not like you planned on quitting in the first place. And hey, a lot of people are going to give up or simply get demotivated. They've created their own realities. So really, this is a complex mental game. But you can win it, and you know it. You know you could do it, right? I certainly believe you, and there's no rush. Accept that, and conquer those weights. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I want to know from you, what's your experience been with time and genetics? And can you think of any individuals who took you by surprise? Let's hear it. I'll talk to you all next time.